The second book review that I'll be doing is Fox by Margaret Wilde and John Brooks. This book should be considered a modern-day classic in Australia and has won countless awards. More typically, however, this book would mainly be used in a primary school setting. Following a bit of a theme, like Mirror, I believe this book can also be used in a secondary setting. It explores many complex ideas and themes, and when we start analyzing the picture book critically. The story follows the friendship of a magpie and a dog, and when a fox joins the story, the whole dynamic of the story changes. Fox explores the key themes of friendship, betrayal, loyalty, and trust through the relationships of the magpie, the fox, and the dog. Looking at some of the strengths and weaknesses of the text. The Fox requires critical thinking to start to unravel some of the deeper meaning behind the text, looking at how the book is laid out and the way the author chose to do this, promoting critical thinking. Linking to the next strength, unraveling the imagery and symbolism, which there are numerous examples of throughout the book. There are also some cultural and historical links in the story. The main weaknesses of this book would be the language used. The language used in the text would be considered extremely easy for middle year students, and the analysis of the language aspects of the curriculum probably wouldn't be met using this text. And I would consider the storyline to be another weakness of it. Since it is quite simple, some of the students may feel disengaged with the book. However, I feel that the strengths of the text outweigh the weaknesses, as the students will have a chance to explore a wide range of variety of literary techniques. Activities. A possible activity that could be done with this book is an analysis of the use of literacy and imagery techniques used throughout the text. Students would identify and explain how this technique was used, and then explain the intended impact on the reader. Some examples of this could be identifying sentence structures. Dog and magpie tend to use simple sentences, whereas fox uses complex sentences throughout the text. The writer is trying to show that fox is a cunning character. In the real world, foxes are typically perceived as cunning and sly creatures. Imagery. The illustrator uses the background to create the feeling the landscape is dry and harsh, reflecting the setting of the story, a bushfire-affected area in Australia. Other examples of literary techniques which are used but are not limited to throughout the text are juxtaposition, metaphors, simile, and repetition, and some other conventions that need to be considered were page or image composition and lighting. Students could analyze some of these. There are also author and illustrator notes for this book. Doing this analysis twice, first time without the notes, the second time with the notes, would help illustrate to the students the intended purpose of the author. Links to the curriculum. These are the main curriculum points that would relate to Fox during the middle years. They mainly revolve around the multimodal or visual aspect of the text and how the literature features of these texts affect the reader. Feel free to pause at any stage to read these. The first video review, Mirror, had a focus with the activities, so with this video I wanted to talk about some of the important framework that should be mentioned when teaching students literacy in the middle years. When looking at the literacy teaching toolkit for levels 7 to 10, one of the frameworks that I thought would work best for this book would be annotating the text to help develop understanding in English. Annotations are a great way to support students with their comprehension skills. Identifying the key words, quotes, sections, or passages within the text. Students can then form discussions around their annotations, which would further develop their interpretations by them challenging each other's interpretations and explaining the process by which they were able to come by their interpretations, and they will also gain an understanding to learn how others read and interpret texts. With this book, it's a great opportunity to use this practice. As a pre-activity, students can annotate and identify different techniques they found in this book. There are many literacy techniques used in this book, and students can have different interpretations of the intended effect on the reader, and by sharing annotations with other students, they can develop the skills of being able to identify different literacy techniques linking back to the curriculum.